Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Sound Money Matters Live. This is your host, Daniel Diaz of Citizens for Sound Money. And we got a great show. I think it's good that we've had these other shows that talking about real world assets, digital ID. You know, we had King Coleman on Friday with our premiere talking about gold and silver legislation with the digital and the physical and how they're coming together. And we have a fantastic guest. He's a co-founder of a digital wallet called Decaf, and what they're doing is a very innovative. And I don't want to give it too much away, but they're bringing real world assets with DeFi, and they're doing some great partnerships. So, without any further ado, I'd love to introduce you to our guest, Rick Martin. Hey, Rick, how you doing?
Doing great. Nice to be here, Daniel.
Yeah, likewise, and thank you for coming on the show. One thing that our late founder, Jim Forsyth, always did was he always asked two questions for our guests. And the first question is, why is sound money important?
Well, we all know that in the current day and age, people are suffering from things like inflation all around the globe. I mean, the conversation I'm having everywhere I go, I travel a lot, is how quickly everything seems to be increasing in price, food, rent, and everything like that. So we have to obviously consume all of these parts of our life with money. And so the value that we hold is starting to become really, really valuable and really important to think about as governments print more and more money. We need to start thinking about, well, what is the value of that money which I work for, which I receive as payments, and how can I start to protect myself with a form of money or a form of value that holds better than currently what fiat money does. And there's some other reasons as well, but I can go into that. But that's primarily what it is.
No, 100%. A question that has come up since I started working with Citizens for Sound Money was like, can something digital be sound? Right? Can sound money, gold and silver, be digitized and really be considered sound money? And that is something that our organization has addressed through what we call asset-backed digital currencies. Initially, it was just one term, and that could be USDC, USDT, but we've since broken it up into four categories. We have a tier 1 down to tier 4. And tier 1 is the highest form of asset-backed digital currency, which it has to be backed by gold or silver and be redeemable for a certain amount of physical gold and silver. That threshold for tier 1 is 100 grams of gold, 200 ounces of silver. Tier 2 is redeemable, but at a higher threshold, and we're talking about Tether Gold or PAX-G, which are 400-ounce bars. Yeah, if you can redeem a 400-ounce bar, but unless you have almost $2 million, you won't be able to. Then tier 3 would be like fiat currencies, tokenized stocks. That's tier 3. That isn't really sound money, isn't tangible, but it is backed by something real that you can redeem. And then tier 4 will be a non-redeemable asset-backed digital currencies like real estate. Excuse me. Real estate, gold and silver that hasn't been mined. So, the question comes up, well, what do we consider sound money? I would say tier 1 and tier 2 would fall within that sound money category. Tier 3 and tier 4 are not. But before we dig a little more into the technology behind real world assets and asset-backed digital currencies, the second question we always ask is, tell us about your background. How did you get here? Why did you start Decaf? Who are you?
It's a big question. I could start with a lot of things. I guess the consistent theme of my adult life has been with technology, finance, and creativity. So about, I think, 12 years ago, I was working in Bloomberg in financial electronic trading, and there I looked at like stocks and bonds and fixed income assets and FX, foreign exchange, but just all types of different things of value in the market, all the different types of asset classes, and how it would trade electronically and how efficient it was in institutional markets. But then I would see, a difference in how retail or us as individuals would be able to, for example, buy a different currency or trade or sell. And I noticed a big difference. And I was always passionate about this ability to could we achieve efficient markets like the institutions had, but for people, regular people like retail or us, individuals who just want to buy and sell. And at that time, I was working over in London while I was at Bloomberg, and I noticed there was this big wave of neobanks that had just started. It was where the Wise came out, Revolut, all these companies started, Monzo started forming, and they really transformed how, quite frankly, how finance and banking was done, but specifically foreign exchange. So being able to spend your money or card, like with a card or something like that, but overseas with really good exchange rates, and that was really fascinating for me. And during my journey, I worked in finance and worked all around the world, and got myself into entrepreneurship in technology. And during that time, I always looked at crypto as a really interesting technology, and I thought it had the potential to be a whole new technology or network for payments. But traditionally, I think years ago, back in say 2017, gas fees and all the crypto-ness of this industry was really, really difficult. So I didn't think it was an efficient enough a technology to actually transform how we do banking. And but come around 2021 and all the new blockchains and networks that were really efficient, low gas fees, and extracting away or pulling away and hiding all the crypto-ness of this industry, I got really interested, and we started going to hacker houses with my co-founders at the time, and we came up with the idea of, hey, could we actually have crypto but usable in the real world to buy something like a coffee, for example? And we were in Latin America at the time, and coffee in Spanish is café, and we said, well, could you make decentralized? Could you have decentralized cafe, like where you crypto with or coffee with your crypto, and that was the whole idea behind Decaf, decentralized cafe. And so could we make crypto really usable in the real world through payments? And that idea has lasted since we started in the very start of 2022, and it's just evolved more and more as we've gone through this journey, and it's been a really, really fascinating journey. And now it's all coming together. The whole world is starting to recognize the value and power of this technology to do things like tokenize real world assets, and that has led to this whole boom of this real world asset movement, where we can start to see how we can bring everything on chain to make it more efficient, but bring that real value of the things on in the real world.
Yeah, and what really got me into, so for those who don't know me yet, like my background was in politics, then I got into finance and insurance and stockbroker. I was anti-crypto, but what really drew me into blockchain technology, not cryptocurrency per se, but the technology behind the entire industry, was the immutability. The fact that you can send payments to anyone in the world almost instantaneously, depending on the blockchain, right? I got in 2020. I saw the polygons. I saw the XRP was there already, but all like Avalanche and is it Arbitrum, all these different second layer blockchains that allowed almost instantaneous transfer with very little friction. And I saw that as a potential to really free people, because for me, my background, I'm a first generation Cuban American. I understand how government can control and take people's liberties. Heck, we experienced that in this country back in COVID. I mean, America is one of the freest countries, if not the freest country in the world. And then our state governments took our civil liberties away and started shutting us down. We couldn't go outside. We couldn't spend. I didn't listen. I traveled. I flew. I paid $19 for a round trip from Florida to Michigan and back. I mean, it was great traveling during COVID if you weren't afraid. And I was using crypto all the time. I was a crypto miner, blockchain consultant. But that aspect of the immutability, the fact that you can transfer economic energy, is what I call it, to anyone in the world, is amazing. But I wouldn't call cryptocurrency sound money. You can lose 100% of what you've invested into it, or even 30, 40, 50% in a short time frame with Bitcoin or Ethereum. And that isn't sound, right? Sound money, asset-backed digital currencies have to be stable. So I came up with an idea near the end of my crypto business. Like, how do I create something that guarantees will never lose value? So I came up with an NFT project, and I backed it with gold. I backed it with Pax G, and that NFT will never lose value because gold is never going to zero. And that's what started my sound money path, because I knew digital sound money, which really isn't sound money ideology. It's an idea. We agree with the crypto side and the gold and silver stackers that we want freedom, and we want the government out of our business, and we want economic freedom, because personal liberty and economic liberty are tied together, right? Because if you don't have economic liberty, you can't buy property, you can't spend, you can't travel, you can't do anything. And that is, I think, why they brought me into Cities for Some Money. Our late founder and our current chairman saw something that I could bridge the gap. I really dug into this real idea of what sound money is. Sound money is freedom. And you were talking about a story. You told us a story about what happened with you and a colleague in South America, where you were trying to pay people. Tell the audience about that, and why your decaf and cryptocurrency, or in this case, asset-backed digital currencies, are so important.
Yeah, absolutely. We in 2024 we did a documentary about this case. I have a friend called Zach who was doing a business venture in Colombia, and he had a factory and a lot of workers out in a really rural area where most people didn't have a bank account. And he needed to pay his employees for his job. They would sell on Amazon overseas, and then they would make money in US dollars, and they would come back and pay them in Colombia in the factories. And and the only way he could do it was with cash. And because it was quite a rural area, it was very difficult. He had to drive 3 hours, get the cash out of Medellin, drive 3 hours up to the mountains, and pay all his employees one by one. And it was really inefficient system, and quite frankly dangerous, because you had to have secret pockets all over his jackets. He'd ride his motorbike up, and they'd be full stuffed with cash, and in his backpacks and things like that. So one day he was actually at the bank and getting the cash out, and he got shot. He actually, to the point of dying for a little bit, and then he was revived. Fortunately, the doctor said he had about a 5 to 10% chance of living, and so it was quite a miracle that he's still alive. And he couldn't do this anymore. He couldn't do the payments. He was taking enough risk, and then he realized that he could use crypto, well, specifically Decaf, our company, to pay his employees, even when they didn't have a bank account, because we had this partnership with MoneyGram, which you could use your stablecoin, your dollar stablecoin, send it to MoneyGram and pick it up from a local MoneyGram. And there's a lot more MoneyGrams, especially in Latin America, than there are banks. So you could, for example, get paid in USDC, which is what the employees did, and they would go and cash it out the local sucursal, like their local sort of little MoneyGram in the town. There's no banks, but there was a little MoneyGram, and so this was really good for them. They could hold the stable coins, and originally when they first started getting paid, they quickly cashed it out because they didn't really trust the system. But over time, they started to realize, hold on, if I don't cash it out immediately, I can hold dollars. And it was in a market where the Colombian pesos was dropping quite a lot, and they would start eventually learning that, oh, this is safe, I can get out my money whenever I want, but I'm going to hold it in dollars. And then eventually they started paying each other and settling debts between all the other employees with USDC, and then only cash out when they need it and on the weekends. And they started to see the economic activity actually grew the town. New restaurants started getting new tables and new equipment, and then and it was really quite an amazing thing to watch this the economic situation in this town from crypto payments, which were a necessity, because it nearly put the whole project at jeopardy. And Zach is still running it today, and it's quite an amazing situation. But it shows the power of crypto can get to places where traditional systems can't.
Yeah, and that's what I noticed in my crypto career later on. I was like, what's the most important in the first world, in the Western world, in developed countries? It's not as big of a deal using cryptocurrency. They see it more as an investment. But in the developing world, I mean, it can make all the difference, because they're like in Zimbabwe or anywhere else in South America, you can have hyperinflation, But if you can put your economic energy in stable coins or asset-backed digital currencies, you can actually preserve your economic energy to an extent, right? USDC, it's still inflation. But if you put it in gold and silver, digital gold and silver, then they can actually save, transact, create a full economy in the developing world. And that is the future. Like we over here in America and in Europe and the Western world, we see cryptocurrency as a means of investment to get rich. But for the developing world, they see it as a means of commerce and means to actually get pay for goods and services. And I think that is what a lot of people don't see and realize in the West. They say, let me get my meme coin and 10x it or 100x it or 1000x it. No, the rest of the world wants something stable so they can actually save and preserve it or grow it into something like gold and silver. So tell us a little bit about how that fits into your company. You told us about your company. Like, what is everything you guys do? You send and receive money, simple for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're Decaf. We're a digital wallet, as you can see. You just download on the App Store. And yeah, we do focus on stable coins, but you can essentially have any token on Stellar and Solana blockchains because it's a non-custodial wallet. So you're actually operating on the blockchain. So the cool thing about this is we want to make those stable coins that you hold in the wallet as useful as possible. So you can cash out, for example, you can see there to bank accounts in Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, Peru, Argentina, these type of places, and we're always expanding. But you can also do things like have a digital card, a Visa card, so wherever you can spend your stable coin with a card in any place around the world, and you can get the card in like 150 countries around the world. So that's really useful when you think about access to neobanking. And we also have a partnership with MoneyGram, which is what we're typically most known for, and that is where you can convert your stable coin, so your US dollar stable coin, to cash in local currency in 180 countries around the world, which is pretty much everywhere. Even little islands out in the Pacific, we've had people get their Airbnb paid through crypto, and they cash it out in their island in the Pacific, or in any place where traditional banks just do not even serve. Like you might be in Bolivia or Ecuador, or I don't know, out in Ghana, in where there's no banks, and they can still use the MoneyGram thing. So you can imagine what we're seeing is that, especially for businesses and organizations that are trying to pay really difficult places or populations that are really difficult, this is an excellent option. In fact, often the only option to pay people. So we see a lot of utility for those really hard to reach payments for people, and that is really cool to unlock. For example, like with Zach, a whole community in the mountains of Colombia who'd never had bank accounts, but now can work online as digital workers or in factories for international products. This is just not a possibility before, and that's only possible through things like crypto and specifically stable coins.
Yeah, no, it's amazing what you guys have accomplished, man. Like there are companies out there that trying to get debit cards, but you guys have that, and you're operating in 150 plus countries. Businesses can use you. I saw that you can open up a debit card, load it with currency within 3 minutes, and you can also load it up with gold and silver tokens, right? Like KU, KEG, PAXG, and so forth, right?
Yeah, you can hold it in the wallet. As of today, the card is only available for spending with the stablecoin US dollar, but in the future we can add whatever token we want on chain. It's all on chain. There's no banks holding your money or anything like that. So we're looking into what is the token or what is the value that everyone wants to hold. But in future we want to have gold as an option or silver.
Oh, absolutely. What I loved about COVID was I kind of became unbanked, right? I held most of my wealth in crypto, or I had cash because I thought something was going to happen. It didn't happen, but I was operating 100%. Pretty much, I opted out of the system. And with your wallet, your debit card, you can choose to opt out of the banking system. And once you guys start using, something other than stable coins, but with asset-backed digital currencies, gold and silver, I think that is what's going to be a game changer for many people around the world.
100%. And once again, you can hold gold and silver as of today. Any token you can hold. But I agree. Imagine you can hold that or use that gold that you're holding and spend directly
Right.
from your wallet. That's the next step. But absolutely. And we all know that, yes, dollars are great for maybe you're in a country like Venezuela where inflation's like 1,000,000% at times, and devaluation is huge. So you look at dollars as a real utility in terms of store of value. But we all know that gold, it's been around for thousands of years and it's not going anywhere. So when you look at the sort of the level, the tiers, as you sort of describe them, we always shoot for the stars, and gold is, up there with the best.
Yeah, and gold, it's been money for over 5,000 years. And, what I've been asked is like, well, why does Citizen for Sound Money want to make physical gold and silver legal tender? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to shave off a little bit of gold or silver? I mean, we got little 1/10 ounce rounds that we could spend, but it's still about, $460 for a 1/10 ounce round. You can't really actually spend it. So that's where blockchain technology brought an ancient form of money, true money, sound money, to the 21st century so that you can spend it with a debit card, right? And every major institution is talking about, or even in the news, we're talking about the debasement trade, right? People getting out of the dollar. They're buying real assets. They're buying gold and silver. Gold and silver is on a crazy bull market. And what I like telling people is the future of finance is real world assets. I speak around the country. I go on a lot of channels, and I tell people, like, whether you like it or not, we're going to be a digital world. And that future world, you can just look at what's going on with the major institutions, with governments. They're tokenizing real assets, real world assets. And what I think is going to happen is that they're going to back their new currency, the new system, with a percentage of gold, which I think is going to be 40%, and then with a bunch of other different assets. But this is the future of finance, right? The current amount of volume, real world assets, it's over $6 billion right now. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Tokenization of real assets alone, which today is more than $867 trillion. And it's just going to it's still going to grow. This is the amount of real world assets that have been tokenized over time, and how much it's going to be versus GDP. And I want to show the audience, these are the top tokens that have been of commodities, gold and silver commodities that have been tokenized. Number one is Tether Gold. Number two is PAX-G, and you'll be confused. I don't know why CoinMarketCap does this, but number three is actually US Gold Inc., Quorum, and then Kinesis Gold and Kinesis Silver, and then we can come up here. These are self-reported, but these are all tokens. Right now, you can hold on the Decaf Wallet. You can buy any of these gold and silver tokens. Right now, I think the only silver token is Kinesis Silver. All the rest of these are gold. And it's just a growing market. It's massive. I mean, this article says DeFi is set for a $3 trillion boom in the real-world assets, and it's the next wave. That is, if you're just listening to world economics, macroeconomics, you're hearing what the bankers are saying, you're seeing what China's doing. The world is adopting tokenized real world assets. And I mean, that is the future. And people might not like it. And look, I know people. We were in Missouri. Benjamin and I, we did a Sound Money seminar. We were talking about Kinesis and real world assets, and people said, well, never join the digital world. And that's fine. That is, I'm all for the physical stackers. It's just the future of the world. You can opt out. I plan on opting out. I'm a little bit of a prepper. I got food here, gas there, solar panels here, ammo there. I'm ready to opt out too. But I'm a realist. I want to operate in the world because I travel, and this is just the future. But for me, I don't want the government to control. I want to do decentralized finance. I want to have the custodial keys of my real world assets, of my stable coins that I use, my investments. To me, all cryptocurrency is an investment. The only real money is gold and silver. So it's, that's the trend. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And I think the second part of Sound Money, which I didn't describe before, is not just the store of value, but the network that it runs on. And we need to consider that. When I think about crypto, people think about tokens that go up and down in price. But what people sometimes don't talk about is that there's a technology, it's a network that runs behind it. That's actually the valuable part. And what we're discussing and what we're talking about when we say a tokenized asset, how is it running on what network? How is it moving like the internet? And when we talk about like crypto and blockchain, which is the technology, it's essentially like the form of the internet that can do a digital ledger or a form of money. That's all that money is. It's a ledger of who owes who what, and that's, I think, a really important like consideration here as we talk about like, okay, there is a store of value, but on what network? And then when we talk about networks, you're saying like, oh, I want to be prepared for not having one centralized government holding all power on that network.
Right.
And that's the whole point of, well, first of all, there's like, for example, Visa network, which is what everyone uses, and it is centralized, but it's whatever everyone has to use. And there's this mix of, well, what about the internet that we use? It is not centralized. It is a network that is sort of decentralized. But how do we get that same value of an open network with our money? And it's very difficult unless it's the only way you can do it is through blockchain, which is therefore that makes it safer, because then you don't have one person, one party, one government saying, no, you can't use it, because it is, once again, decentralized and it's an open network.
Yeah, the only issue is when it becomes too concentrated, like with what happened with AWS, where 20% of the internet was pretty much down, right? That's the problem when you have major corporations, competing and taking over. And the same thing can be said for the Bitcoin network. You have major corporations that are pretty much have almost 50% or more of the hash rate when you consider all the pools. And my argument was like, look, gold has third-party risk. If you vault your gold with a depository, the state has the monopoly on coercion. They can come and confiscate it. Exact same thing with Bitcoin mining operations. If the world wanted to take over the world governments wanted to take over the Bitcoin network, they will confiscate and nationalize all the crypto mines. They've done it in Asia. They've done it in the Middle East. So there's third-party risk on every level with every asset. Even when you hold it at home, there's counterparty risk even within your home, and people knowing, oh, this guy has gold or silver, right? So you have to put up securities.
Absolutely.
But the network is important, and I'm a big proponent of decentralized finance, decentralized networks, because you can run a node, you can run a miner. If before, when Bitcoin was starting, you just had a bunch of people in their garages mining. It was truly decentralized. It's become concentrated. And that is the problem when corporations really get in. And I think that's a discussion I've noticed with Bitcoin conference. It was a bunch of degens, and now it was like a quarter people in suits. Now it's more than half the people in suits because of the corporations. But with decentralized finance, there really isn't a control. You really set the smart contract. The smart contract's on a blockchain, and then if you put those tokens and there's a liquidity pool, and those liquidity pools are tied to vaults that are audited. Right, that is really one of the best ways, I think, to make asset-backed digital currencies sound money. And I think it has to be those two tiers that I talked about earlier. And I think that's really the solution. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you just described it perfectly. I would say that, decentralization in pure form is nearly impossible, but it doesn't mean that we give up on the idea. This is something that I think a lot of people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater and going, oh, decentralize a failed idea because, you have gold and it's held by one party anyway, held by the mines in a vault or whatever. But there are so many different levels and layers to this, and it doesn't mean we give up all of control just to one party and just say, it's done. There's no decentralization, so we'll just put it all centralized, everything, not just the store of value, but also the network. Maybe we can run the internet just all from Google. Maybe we just don't need any sort of other participants, and they can make all the decisions about whether the internet is open or free. And so, but there are consequences for this, and we should, wherever we can, reasonably and practically, make concerted effort to keep things open and decentralized. And
Yeah.
and like I just, if there's one sort of like point I want to make, is decentralization is not a failed idea. I've seen people say this. It is not, and we should make effort to, wherever reasonably possible, have those ideals. It's an accountability and a risk thing that helps everyone, and keeping things open and decentralized and transparent, I do think in a lot of ways is, well, it's just healthier for our system. Like you mentioned, you're an end, maybe a final day prepper, right? And we all know what the risk is. It's that one government, one sort of control can make all decisions to do whatever they want to cut you out of a system, to be, you might protest for something and then they shut down your bank accounts because you're not on any sort of decentralized network, or, they steal your gold because there's not any sort of decentralized. There's all these sort of things. But if we can take steps to prevent and make it harder, which is decentralization, it's important. And I think that's like a point I want to make.
Yeah, even with gold, like Kinesis has 13 vaults around the world. Their gold and silver holdings are decentralized.
That's right.
When they do their audits, they have an auditor in all their vaults, and they count the metal at the exact same time. And that's what decentralization is. It's just taking one focal point of failure and spreading it out. And,
Exactly.
we interviewed William Browning, and he said on the show that they're planning on creating decentralized servers where, sure, if the government wants to confiscate that server and try to get the information in his what is it called, quantum random number like vault, one, they don't have access, and two, go ahead. He's like, I have multiple redundancies, and that's the point. When you're planning, well, let's say for the prepper side. I mean, and you can call it prepper. I'm just in Florida. I'm preparing for hurricanes. Whatever you want to call it. You want to have redundancies. You want to have extra food. You want to have extra ammo. You're more than you need. That's just the point. And I think that's the point of decentralization, because gold and silver is decentralized money. We, the people, chose this. The government doesn't control this. They try to confiscate. They own a lot of gold, the central governments, but ultimately this is decentralized money. Gold and silver was chosen by the people, and believe it or not, cryptocurrency was something developed by the people for the people. And now I love that we're merging real sound money with blockchain technology, bringing the oldest form of money to the 21st century. And it just makes sense, right? Because you can make a yield. There's different ways to grow your economic energy. One of it is investing in businesses. Other ways are, buying stocks, bonds, buying real estate, doing wealth cycling. Another, you can also just put it in DeFi. You can put it in a liquidity pool, and you earn a yield when people are buying and selling from your liquidity. And you can do that with gold and silver. There's the possibilities are endless. And with the technology that's coming along, I mean, you have Starlink too. So there's always the Starlink that you can connect to the internet if you wanted to. So that's kind of it's a centralized company, but it's decentralized in the sense that you don't need to be plugged in. You can just connect to the internet with one of their satellites receivers. But yeah, we're I like to open questions. So if anybody's watching and has a question for Rick or I, please go ahead and put it in the comments. We're on X, we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And we don't normally talk heavily about cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. We support it 100%. But I'd like to hear some of the comments. Is there anything you want to share, Rick, about internet or just anything we've been discussing so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think you sort of mentioned a lot of things about, I think the theme that I sort of saw is diversification is a form of decentralization, right?
100%.
Like it's just, we talk about sound money, sound decisions, diversification, decentralization, that has to play into any sort of decision around sound money and sound decisions. So, I think it just sort of reiterates the point. And also I want to mention about William Browning's idea of, well, it's not his, like he works with a team. They all see this as important, but we've recently seen the importance of, where your data is and what servers it's running on, and how, having that being really centralized can hold huge risks. And like we've all just witnessed how the internet like being completely affected by AWS, one company holding so much power on an open network of the internet as we know it, and it really affected so many businesses, and it brought up a lot of risks, and we need to start thinking about these things. And once again, wherever possible, can we strive to make decisions to diversify, to decentralize, so that we can avoid these type of things in the future.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, how do we prevent another AWS? I mean, you can run your own server, and if you really run a busy website, you're gonna have to keep upgrading that server for bandwidth and throughput, and it can take up a lot of energy. And then you just think about, we're moving into a digital world. The entire electrical grid is being stressed in the United States. That's why they're opening up coal mines. That's why they're looking for more nuclear, and we're starting to buy energy from Canada. I mean, we're getting to an age where we are running out of power, and we just got to start coming up with new ways. I think we're very close to fusion power, but like I'm reading articles left and right of people complaining about their town. A small town now is a server, like they're a server farm, that just servers everywhere, and it's just what's happening. It's the future. So I like William's idea of actually putting it underwater, because I mean China's talking about doing it too, putting their servers in the water and deep in water to keep it cool. It's kind of genius. You're not taking up any land. It's not taking up any space where people live. But there's a lot to think about when people are thinking about their future, right? One, how they're saving, how they're protecting their economic energy. Are they keeping in touch with what's happening around the world? Are they prepared for when the dollar system, the fiat system, comes to an end? Because it was designed. The fiat economy was designed to steal and designed to fail. It's unsustainable. An infinite debt cycle is it's structured that way. And are you prepared? Do you have physical gold and silver? Are you looking at the digital components? Decentralized. I mean, you can start off centralized, get into Coinbase, get in, Kinesis, any of these centralized exchanges. Start there, because you can always off ramp the assets to a Decaf wallet or something else. So, go ahead.
No, I agree with you. And once again, it's just consistent with that theme of decentralization, diversification of risk. And that's sound decisions, but that's sound money.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to keep it around 40, 45 minutes, our broadcast. We're almost there. Do you have any last words you want to share with the audience before we wrap up our broadcast?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to repeat what I said because I think it's a pretty important message. I like to say, just because also I've seen a lot of people recently come out saying like, decentralization is a failed idea of Bitcoin. It's not. It's a smart, sound decision making. It's what money should be. And once again, we're not just talking about sound money is not just the store of value. It is also the network as well that it runs on. So when we think about network and store of value, we should start to think about in what ways can I decentralize or diversify my risk. And little things, like I said, you should strive for decentralization where you can. For example, yes, maybe it's not practical for now to buy Bitcoin on a decentralized exchange, or you might need to use a Coinbase or a centralized platform. But maybe you should put it to a wallet that you hold the keys, where you're the only one who has access, that you have control of the sending and whatever it is, and therefore it makes it safer, because it can't just disappear or be frozen by some sort of singular party overnight. That's like one little step, or it could be, okay, you've got some dollars because you live in Colombia and you want to hold some dollars, but maybe you should think about also holding some gold and holding something that's even more stable. And then, you might have it on chain so that you could spend it on Visa Network, because that's practically what you have to do. But you might want to think about holding some physical. And I don't know, that's like something else where you're diversifying, you're holding these sort of risks. And these are all efforts to diversify. And then on the network side, we talked about, diversifying, like what network are you running on, just the internet, or are you running your private stuff? Or is there sensitive information that you have that you cannot, afford to lose? then what if a data center did disappear overnight? Like, is your data there? Is it really important data? Maybe you need to start thinking about decentralization of the network as well.
Yeah.
And so all these factors come into sound money, but it is, I think, a very sound decision to start thinking about this today.
Yeah, and there is one decentralized internet. It's the Helium network. The Helium network.
Yes.
So that was really big back in the 2020, 2021. It was a way that you can actually make money by offering a hotspot, decentralized. You just, instead of connecting to Xfinity or whatever, you would connect to a Helium network and you pay for the use. And it I don't know what's happened to it, but it was a great idea. And I think there's a lot to grow from decentralized internet as well. So, but yeah, Rick, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think that, the future of finance and what you have providing with Decaf Wallet, the debit card, I'm definitely going to look at getting a Decaf Wallet with a debit card, loading up some, maybe when it's available, some KU, KG, and other gold and silver, and start spending my gold and silver in a decentralized wallet, which I think is fantastic. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
you can be unbanked or debanked. Sorry.
I've been debanked. And I want to be unbanked, or debanked, unbanked, and just opt out of the system. How about that?
There's some and have good options. Yes.
Exactly. Well, Rick, thank you so much for coming on Sound Money Matters Live, and we'll catch you again soon. I'm sure we're going to have some discussions about partnering up on some things, so we'll definitely bring you back on.
Yeah, it's good. This is good fun. Nice. It was great chatting, Daniel.
Likewise. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. That is our broadcast with Rick Martin from Decaf Wallet. And check out that Decaf card if you haven't. Let's put that up again. So go to the website, decaf.so, not .io, not .com, .so, decaf.so, and follow them on X. And if you like our content and you like what we're doing at Citizens for Sound Money, spreading sound money, bridging the gap between the physical and the digital, please check us out at Citizens for Sound Money. You can go to citizensforsoundmoney.org. And if you want to join our organization, support the sound money movement, you can go to our website, click on Become a Member, and there are two membership options. There is a $25 membership option and a $100 membership option. And when you give $100, we will actually send you a ½ ounce of digital gold. And another great feature of for our physical stackers out there is when you join either membership, you get access to something called Metal Markup. Metal Markup is the best gold and silver bullion aggregator in the United States and Canada. It's better prices than fine bullion prices. Shows you the cheapest silver right now in the markets. Shows you my computer moved. There you go. Cheapest gold in the U.S. on the market. And then my mouse is not working. Silver and gold in Canada. So that is an exclusive member benefit for joining Citizens for Sound Money. And if you want to support our educational foundation, you can go to soundmoneymovement.org and get a tax write-off. We have our grants, our TV show curriculum that we're planning on working and developing curriculum from pre-K up to university level. And we also have our Sound Money Academy. We're producing content right now to provide free education on financial literacy and sound money education. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe on YouTube. We are trying to get to 2,000. 3 weeks ago, we were at 800 subscribers. We're at 1,122 last I checked. So go ahead, watch the videos, and follow us on X. If you are watching us X or you're not on X, just go ahead. It's the same handle @For Sound Money for YouTube and X. Well, everybody, thank you again for watching and being a faithful follower of the Sound Money movement and Citizens for Sound Money. We will catch you next time, and I have an amazing guest this Friday. We will have Silver Seeker himself being on our premiere on Friday. We're going to talk about gold and silver. What's the best gold to buy? What's the best silver to buy? How to test gold and silver. So it's going to be a great episode for Friday. So thank you, everybody, for coming out. We will catch you. Have a great week, and God bless.